There are certain factors that deeply impact the behavior and understandings of young people. And one of those things is housing, another one of those things is education, and another one of those things are employment.
The Council of Urban Boards of Education gathered in Savannah, Georgia for CUBE's Summer Issues Seminar. Attendees heard from prolific speakers who re-energized our mind and also body and spirit. Here were some of the highlights from this year's event.
It is far more than just trying to figure out what you want in a superintendent. That's not even half the battle. Because there are a lot of people out there walking around with credentials that say, I can be a superintendent. They hang up a shingle and they say, I can be a superintendent. And some of these people, you don't want them. And so you have to understand who you want and what you want in a superintendent. You have to get your house in order. You have to get your house in order. And that proverbial house in your district, in your place of where you're going to bring this superintendent in. And so this house is in order is that you're also going to build a culture of trust. Now, you didn't know when we were talking this morning, you said that. I said, it sounds like you read my presentation, because that's exactly what she said. It's about a culture of trust.
But it really just is important that the board be in charge of their search. So this is helpful to tell us all of this process, but if the board's not in charge of their search, you're not going to be happy with what you get.
So they can negotiate, develop. Yeah. We're breathing hard. Put that on the camera. It's great. Oh, wow. It's a good morning. Hello.
You looking good. Great job.
Woo-hoo! Great job.
Good job. First of all, you all look really, so we're going to get you to stand up and do an exercise with us. We're going to get you to do an equity walk with us. Now, this is a different one. Get up. Okay.
On each one of your cables, you have an odd and even number, or odd and even tag on it. So know if you're odd or even. If you're odd, then I want you to think about you pick an affluent school in your school district, one that is not high poverty in your school district. If you're even, I want you to take a school in your school district that is high poverty in your school district. Now, what I want you to do next is we're going to line up in here, and I know there's a bunch of folks in here. We'll line up right across here.
If your school or your school district has a poverty rate less than 50%, I want you to take a step forward. Less. Okay. If your school or school district has a transient population greater than 20%, take a step back. If your graduation rate is over 90%, take a step forward.
Over 90.
If your dropout rate is over 20%, take a step back.
Listen, folks, what you're looking at, look at the disparity that exists. And when you think about what exists between schools, this is a visual that you always take in mind. There is differences between every school district and every school, and even within your own districts sometimes. That's even a bigger challenge when you have that gap in your own district. And this is just a simple visual representation to show that it is not equitable everywhere, and why you have to advocate so hard for those who need to know. There's a thing I always say, those who need more need more.
Our conversation today needs to be about how do we continue this conversation about and with charter schools. Today we are blessed to have panelists, David Stone, one of our own CUBE steering committee members from Baltimore City Public Schools. We have, is it Eliza or is it Elisa? Elisa Falco, the Vice President of School Services for Georgia Charter Schools Association, and Stephanie Klopinski, the Executive Director of Charter Schools from Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I am Minnie Ford Brown, also a member of the CUBE Steering Committee, and I will serve as your moderator. But we're not trying to have good schools in the system. but a good or a great system of schools. So how do we get that together with charters and traditional public schools?
I think about this a lot. You know, the media, and I used to be part of that, likes to simplify things and likes things to be like almost like sports analogies. So we like to do district charter, right? There's always articles about district charter, and you feel like you have to be on one side or the other, which is definitely not the purpose. So I think part of this is remembering that the purpose, at least in my mind, of charters is to help elevate the entire system of education. A rising tide lifts all boats. So we need to start looking more at whether the entire system of education in the district or across the state has improved as a result of the innovation of charter policy. Yeah, so I think that's one way we start. But even, you know, and my colleague talked about it too, you know, when you see research or articles, how do the charters do compared to how the districts do, that's not really the right way to look at how charters are doing. So I think we need to start looking more holistically at the whole system and how charters have improved the overall quality of education.
Okay, and you can say without a doubt that you think the charters have really improved the whole quality of education.
Well, that's a different question. I did not say that.
You didn't say that?
No, but that's what we should look at, absolutely.
So that should be a question. Have charters improved the whole quality?
No, not in Ohio.
Okay.
You've already heard, you already know. A day in the life of a school board attorney is filled with all kinds of issues. Lester and I were talking earlier. We like to tell our clients, folks are always asking us when out on the street in the grocery store, you know, what in the world do you do in school law? What does the school board have to do that needs a lawyer for, you know? And we like to explain that we are general counsel because we've got to do a lot of different things for a specialized clientele, because your job is to educate boys and girls and do that with all the resources that you need. That involves so many issues, from personnel to student issues, student discipline, special education, and all the transactional stuff of a large business. Most of you are the biggest business in your communities. So there's an awful lot of school law that's involved. The Council of School Attorneys is the only bar association that serves only public school board attorneys.
In our district, we have debate whether the attorney works for the superintendent or for the board. And so that same issue, because we have one person in our legal counsel office, so we have found ourselves in times where if the attorney truly works for the superintendent versus the board, there might be conflicting advice. And so we'd just love to see, I don't want to belabor it right now, but would love to see some talking points or best practices for how to work around.
I think that's a great question, because it comes up in so many contexts. And since I'm leaving town after this, I can say this. It has different contexts if you're outside counsel, or like Lester is, or if you're outside counsel and represent a lot of boards everywhere, like we do, you know. So you're hometown outside counsel, you're outside counsel, but you represent a lot of folks, or if you're in-house counsel. Now, the answer to your question's the same. The lawyer represents the school district, and the board governs the district, but the superintendent manages the district every day. So the decisions that you're representing are most often made by the superintendent, but it's the board's governance that controls those decisions and where you're going. The real question isn't answering the question, it's how do you balance all that? That's where, and this is my plug, that's where COSA provides a benefit, because you let people who deal with your board every day and feel that tension come to meetings, come to sessions, meet with other attorneys, and be able to have that discussion. So when they do go back, they can take back their talking points and take back their ideas with them. That's what we hope to be able to provide.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're starting a little bit late, but believe me, we will get out on time. I have been asked to facilitate this meeting of the mid-sized urban district.
So when we talk about specialty schools, we're talking about high academic achievement schools. We have 3 international baccalaureate elementaries in our highest poverty areas, and those schools are now outperforming our more affluent areas. And our superintendent, quote unquote, and she's been amazing, said, you know what, you guys need to get off your butts now.
I've never bought into this idea that your zip code determines everything. There is this thing called regionality. Like you can, if a school is literally just a mile or less than a mile away across a certain district, why not have that kid go there?
Our population is increasing dramatically. Already, Latinos are the second largest population group in the country. We do not use the word minority at NALEO. We don't call ourselves a minority. We're the second largest population group. The largest population group in the United States are non-Hispanic whites. The next group are Hispanics, and then African Americans, and then Asian Americans, and then Native Americans. And this is the trajectory of the increase of our population. We have a crisis in American democracy. And the 2014 election, I think, was the most obvious example of how much we're not valuing our right to vote. In 1978, 50.6% of all eligible whites, meaning they're citizens, they're 18 years of age, voted. In 2014, only 45% of all eligible whites voted. It's a 5% decline from 78 to 2014. For the African American community, the numbers are static. 39% of all eligible African Americans voted in 78, 40% of all eligible African Americans voted in 2014. For Latinos, the crisis is even greater. 35% of all eligible Latinos voted in 78, 27% voted in 2014. Our participation rates for everybody are going down, or at minimum staying level. And it affects young people, and it affects poor people, and it affects the people who don't have access to education.
That education, if it happens in the schoolhouse, has to be on the terms of improving the human condition, not you scoring better on random test. Right? It can't be that. Right? I refuse to believe that assessments tell me anything about the capacity of young folks to do work. Right? And let's do a straw poll. All the teachers that you all loved in your history of education, how many of them were always in trouble? By a show of hands. In trouble with everybody. Right? Now, think about that. That good teacher was always in trouble because they made a decision. They are going to educate you in spite of what this system that hates you does. So now, what is that reality and how do we make that live collectively, right?